The Morgan Report with David Morgan.
David Morgan, themorganreport.com, the 19th of December, 2020. Well, I will start with the stock market as I usually do, and I will say that the stock indices still maintain an uptrend. The SPX is kind of at a high-level consolidation and maintaining. The QQQs are doing the same. The Tech Spider Index is hitting a new record, and Apple, of course, has actually broken out to the upside. And it continues onward, my friends. The stock market certainly has been zesty this year. And then further on in the week, let me tell you that the precious metals, of course, have advanced. The gold spider, the GLD, rose 1%. The last day of the week, and it's really looking like it wants to challenge the downtrend line. The metals are looking strong here over the last few trading sessions. Silver can lead at times. It doesn't always, but the silver iShares really just broke the downtrend line rather significantly on a gap. And that's the SLV, that it's actually above its early November high, and it's reaching the highest level in 3 months. So silver's been more or less on fire relative to gold, and gold has hit close to 1900 this week. So looks like the precious metals are doing what they used to do on seasonalities a long time ago, which was they actually started a rally in the last month of the year and followed through in January, February, and March usually. So it remains to be determined how strong they are at the beginning of the year. Usually that's a very good seasonality for all the precious metals, and I do believe that is going to be the case again this time. This week, I think I'll say a little bit different. I do this in a report. I usually make a quote at the beginning of the month, each month. So this is from a Stoic philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, and quote unquote, "If you want to see the future, look to the past. Empires have risen and empires have fallen." Again, end quote. I'm on the About Us page, and I just wanted to bring your attention, if you haven't seen it already, that this film, The Four Horsemen, is all about the end of the Age of Empire. It's free. You can click through there, or you can just copy the URL and play it on your phone or your pad or your TV or stream it or whatever you want to do. But it is a pretty good overview of, really from a long-term perspective, where we are in the cycles between empires. It's not quite the level of The Fourth Turning, which is a whole book, but in an hour and a half, this presentation, in my opinion, is well worth the viewing. And I'm back on the blog here, so I'm coming up here to go to our YouTube channel. Some have asked if last week's video was taken down. The answer is I didn't do one last week. I've been traveling 9 days out of the last 10 business days. I am back. I will be here for couple more weeks, and then I'll be off to Mexico in January. I want to point out, as I have in the past on the blog, that there's this community portion right here. And I think it's really important to listen to this one right here. This is one from Ice Age Farmer. Shout out to Christian. It's called "The Cyber Panic Has Begun." And this is, in my view, highly important for what's really going on. He calls it the cyber pandemic, cyber pandemic. And he has the WEF, World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab's words about the cyber pandemic or a cyber attack and what that would mean. It's a 15-minute video. In my view, it's probably the best 15 minutes you will spend this weekend looking at what's really going on outside the political volleyball back and forth. This is something, in my view, far more critical to your thinking. And I thought this weekend I would do a bit about silver only, so I'm going to do that from this till the end. This is from Metals Focus. Did an interview with the Silver Institute talking about an overview of the silver market for the year. Of course, we still have a couple weeks left, but according to the highlights of this report, the most significant development in silver investment market this year was the strength of the ETPs, exchange-traded products. Investment silver-backed ETPs surpassed 1 billion ounces for the first time, and it's a record. According to them, Metals Focus forecasts an increase of 350 million ounces year-end So that compares to last year's 81 million ounces. So obviously that's over a four-fold increase in silver demand on the investment side in exchange-traded products, which means for the most part institutional investors. And I'm going to close out this video. I'll show a short clip within this one extolling the virtues of silver in 2020. And I do believe that we are on our way, as I've said many times, that last part of the market, which has the largest move up in a relatively short amount of time. Of course, that does remain to be determined. And one part of the silver story, which most silver bugs are well aware of, and some from the general public, is that silver has a dual role. It has a role, in fact, the metals focus, going back to that and how much silver demand there was for investment purposes, they called it safe haven. Coming back to the industrial side, if you go back 2 decades, go back 20 years ago, the amount of silver that was used on the industrial side was about 35% of the market. Today, the Silver Institute will tell you it's as high as 60. We could probably conservatively say 50%, or half of the silver market is demanded by industrial use. And what's interesting about that is that it's increased significantly percentage-wise over the last 2 decades. But the amount of silver mined has increased rather significantly over the last 2 decades as well. So what I'm really saying is that the silver demand for industrial use has been actually significantly increased year over year, generally speaking. It ebbs and flows, but the overall trend is obviously up. So I want to point out something I've hinted at a few times, and that is the battery. We did a whole report on the battery metals and cobalt and lithium, and there's a lot of people that are lithium fans, but I've always pointed out that silver really is one of the best ever for battery purposes. In fact, it was over 200 years ago that silver was discovered really to move with zinc and become considered the most important high energy density when it was coupled with other metals. Now remember, both the military and aerospace sectors utilize silver zinc in a range of applications. And this takes, of course, a considerable amount of research, but the military isn't going to bar any expense. They want reliability, and they want, again, density. They want as much power per unit or per pound as they possibly can get. NASA, of course, uses it, aerospace. One of the latest chapters in the silver story comes from Samsung, and they have announced an improved electrical vehicle battery. And this is from their Advanced Institute of Technology. In their work, Samsung said it has strived to overcome some of the most common drawbacks of lithium-ion batteries, namely limited energy, issues with safety, which can in rare cases cause them to catch fire, and the growth of dentites, weak whisker-like growths that deplete the battery's lifespan and safety profile. Samsung has proposed utilizing for the first time a silver carbon composite layer as the anode. The team at Samsung found that incorporating a silver carbon layer into the prototype pouch cell-shaped supported a large capacitor, longer cell life, and enhanced its overall safety. Just 5 micrometers thick, the layer allowed the team to reduce anode thickness and increase energy density. It also enabled them to make the prototype approximately 50% smaller by volume than a conventional lithium-ion battery. The company hopes that further research will help drive the expansion of electric vehicles, and the prototype cell that the team developed could enable EVs to travel up to 500 miles on a single charge and features a cycle life of over 1,000 charges. Well, you're not going to hear that every day on the mainstream news, and you're probably not going to hear it from a lot of people in the silver market. But regardless, I think that's very important for us all to bear in mind that very few people talk about silver's use in batteries. We hear about it in solar, and of course, solar is, according again to the Silver Institute, planned to double by the year 2025. And of course, solar cells are becoming more and more efficient all the time, and they have squeezed the amount of silver used per unit as much as possible at this point in time. Could there be further improvements? Of course, there may be. That isn't known ahead of time, but silver is obviously very important for a high-tech society, and I wanted to point out, here's so much about the EV market that I'd throw in my 25 cents pre-1964 older silver quarter into the mix of thinking about that issue.
Where do you put your money? What's the number one conviction trade right now for you, 2020? Silver.
Silver.
Silver. Why not gold?
Because when you look at the relative values of silver and gold, silver today is about, let's say, 65% below its prior peak. Gold is getting very close to its prior peak.
Can it go exponential like we've seen in some of the non-precious metals?
I think there's a high probability of that.
So it's about time to wrap it up. Obviously, silver has been on fire this year. Did it outperform Bitcoin? No. But it did very well in the markets. So it's probably a good time to take a look. It's not the last week of the year, but we're close enough, I'd say. What's interesting here is the metals that are not the precious metals and how well they did this year. You can see aluminum's up about 14%, copper up almost 30%, lead 6%, nickel 25%, tin 20%, and zinc almost 24%. 24% in zinc matches what gold did this year, at least so far with a couple of weeks to go. Gold outperformed palladium slightly this year, which has been the case. And platinum's finally starting to move up almost 8% for the year. But the big winner out of all the metals, precious included, was silver this year, and that's up 44%. Remember, Bob Johnson, and thank you, Bob, for doing this work for so long. Let me shout out to you. And that's showing you that at the beginning of the year, silver was at 1782. So that's 44% based on that number. It's not from the low. He's not picking numbers. He's picking dates. It's the overall year-to-date increase based on where we started at the beginning of the year. So, or actually from the end of the year. That's the number at the 31st of 2019, 1782, and we're up 44% from then. So the metals did about as good as the indexes. You can see the XAU was up 35%. You're not getting the leverage in the stocks, at least on the indexes, that you would want, taking the extra risk in the miners. In fact, the 35.5% on the XAU, which is the biggest index in the mining sector, excuse me, is less than the 44.5% that silver did on its own. Dollar's down about 7% for the year. Crude is off about 20% for the year. And along with that one, heating oil, natural gas is up, and gasoline, you would expect with crude, is down about 17%. So that's pretty much a wrap up on where we ended the year. I want to just remind everybody that it's best to get on our website and get on our free list. I don't know how long my channel is going to be up. Most of what I do isn't that controversial, but I have had videos taken down in the past. It wasn't the case last week, as I mentioned in the beginning of this one. I wish everyone out there that listens to these podcasts the very best holiday season, regardless of what that is for you. And remember, there is nothing more important than the truth. Speak truth to power. I think it's more important than ever that we do. If we really value the freedoms that we once enjoyed and are being obviously taken from us rapidly, it's time for good men to stand up and do something, and of course that includes women. So thank you all. I will be back with you next week with another weekly perspective. David Morgan, themorganreport.com.